HOA Karen thought they could crush me with rules and fines, but when the county investigator read my daughter's name out loud, I knew the fight was bigger than me. What happened next turned our whole neighborhood against Karen, and it wasn't the ending she expected. I remember the whistle first, sharp as a mosquito bite cutting noon. My daughter Pippa giggled in her pink pool. Then Karen pointed, clipboard raised, calling trespass. Neighbors froze mid-lawn mow. Sun baked our tiny yard behind 19 Larkspur Trace. The water shimmered blue, innocent. Karen's sunglasses hid her eyes, but her smirk shouted punishment. Before we continue, please drop a like and comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Australia, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back, tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Unauthorized structure, she said, like a judge. Immediate removal. Pippa hugged her rubber duck, shaking. I felt heat move from sun to chest, rage boiling under skin. I asked for mercy, a weekend, a warning. Karen recited rules like hymns, words hard as gravel. Pippa whispered, "Daddy, did we do bad?" My knees trembled. The whistle blew again. A neighbor filmed. Another whispered, "Just pay the fine." Karen took photos from every angle, measuring joy with a tape like it was crime. I reached to deflate the pool. My hands wouldn't move. I remembered the winter nights, overtime shifts, the bargain store box promising backyard summer smiles. My throat closed. "Last chance," Karen said. Non-compliance escalates. A second board member, Mr. Penn, appeared, carrying orange tags like warning flags. He stared at Pippa, then at me. I planted my feet. "Write your tag." Pippa's duck squeaked. Karen's pen scratched like a saw. The tag flapped on the pool, bright, loud, humiliating. Somewhere, a door slammed. Somewhere my old fear woke. Not of rules, of people who loved them more than children. The whistle hung in the air. Karen leaned close and whispered, "I always win." I smiled back, finally steady. "Not today." Then the hose hissed behind me, and the water started moving. Months earlier, I was 30, not 45, living paycheck to paycheck in Bramble, Ohio. I mowed crooked lines and taped duct on a rattling window unit. Pippa turned 4 that spring. Her world was chalk hearts, thrift store fairy wings, and Saturday pancakes shaped like stars. We counted coins in a jar labeled summer. At Beacon Freight, I hauled pallets until my shoulders throbbed. My supervisor, Rusk Dyer, counted minutes like dimes. I worked every double he tossed, thinking of July. Our rental at 19 Larkspur Trace had a postage stamp backyard. Fences tall, grass temperamental, neighbors meticulous. The HOA brochure felt friendly, until you read the tiny print. I met Karen during move-in. She smiled with all teeth, no warmth. "Welcome," she said, eyes sweeping our used furniture. "We value standards here." It sounded like warning. Pippa loved sprinklers at Community Park, but crowds made her shy. The kiddie pool box promised quiet fun at home. I hid it in the closet like treasure. On payday, I bought it and a cheap pump. We celebrated with freezer pops. "It'll be our ocean," Pippa said. I promised sand made of crushed graham crackers. In May, Karen posted Beautification Month flyers. Perfect hedges, approved colors, compliance checks. I trimmed shrubs until midnight. She inspected at dawn, noting debris, a lone blue crayon. When heat finally settled, we unfurled the pool. Blue ring, smiling whales, a tiny rainbow arch. It inflated with cheerful squeaks. Pippa clapped like fireworks. Then, the first letter arrived. Notice of potential violation. Structures require approval. My stomach dipped. I thought it was a mistake. I folded it small and hoped. I brought cookies to the board meeting, stupid optimism shaped in sugar. Karen thanked me without looking, flipping forms like shuffling a deck nobody else could touch. "I'm requesting a temporary variance," I said. "Kiddie pool, inflatable, used afternoons only. No permanent impact." I held up photos of Pippa's smiling sunshine. The room blinked. Mr. Penn cleared his throat. Policy says structures over 12 inches are prohibited. Karen tapped the photo with a pen. This protrudes. Laughter flickered around the folding chairs. I'll deflate nightly, I said. Store in shed. Karen pointed at a line. Visible items in yards must conform to aesthetic standards. The words felt like closing doors. Children's enjoyment, I tried, softer. Summer heat. Karen read another rule, water-related liabilities. She said liabilities like it meant Pippa. My jaw clenched. I tasted tin. Denied, she concluded. Stamped red. I left the cookies on the table, untouched, their chocolate chips staring like little eyes. Outside, cicadas buzzed like static in grief. At home, I told Pippa we'd try again. She made a crown from foil and called me Pool King. I taped the denial to the fridge, a dare. We swam anyway, quietly. 30 minutes after work, shade to protect grass. A towel under the ladder. I watched the fence lines like a nervous guard on patrol. Neighbors noticed. Ms. Vesper from 21 waved, slipping us extra sunscreen. But Walter Gray from 17 measured our lawn with his eyes, muttering, rules are rules. 3 days later, a second notice came with photos. Escalation. The fine doubled. I felt something flicker inside me, fear giving birth to stubborn fire. On Saturday, Karen arrived with a clipboard and a smile poured from cold metal. She brought a measuring wheel, a camera, and a volunteer named Trent with a badge. She announced, adjudication inspection, like we were a leaking dam. The yard felt smaller. Pippa hid behind my leg, clutching her duck. The pool glittered like a blue coin. Karen narrated measurements for Trent. Diameter, exceeding regulated footprint. Color palette, unapproved vibrancy. Risk category, medium. Each word landed like a pebble in my shoe, impossible to ignore. I asked again for sense. It's not a shed. Not a gazebo. It's air and water. Karen smiled. Air and water can be non-compliant. Trent wrote faster, head down. She suggested a compliant alternative, a gray, foldable water mat, flat as a sigh. Approved colors only, she said. Pippa whispered, but the whales. My throat pulled tight. If you care, Karen said, you'll choose compliance. I thought of care meaning safety, laughter, dignity. She meant obedience. We stood in the gap between those two meanings. A drone buzzed overhead, Walters. Evidence gathering from the sky, like we were thieves. I waved at it. Pippa waved too, small and brave, ducks squeaking a battle cry. Final notice, Karen said, sticking a fluorescent tag to our fence. Remove within 24 hours. She left, leaving the smell of perfume and paper cuts behind. I crouched to Pippa's height. We'll figure this out. She nodded, solemn as a judge in pajamas. The sun slid lower, and shadows sharpened like knives. That night, someone slipped a note under our door. Stand firm. Meeting tomorrow at dusk, cul-de-sac. No signature, just a doodle of a smiling whale. At dusk, neighbors gathered like fireflies. Lawn chairs appeared. Lemonade passed. The circle felt secret like childhood forts. Someone chalked, "Let kids be kids," across the asphalt. Ms. Vesper spoke first. Karen cited my birdbath last fall. A few nodded. Walter scowled from his porch, drone glowing like a mean star. The sky bruised purple. Mr. Penn arrived without the badge, carrying a folding stool. He looked tired. Rules went strict after a lawsuit, he said. Karen enjoys strict. Some of us don't. A teen named Marlowe showed us screenshots. Kids banned from sidewalk chalk, porch pumpkins measured, a swing taken down for rope visibility. Each story felt like sandpaper on skin. I shared our letters, fines, the vibrancy. Laughter bubbled, then anger settled. We could appeal, someone said. We tried, Mr. Penn answered. Karen stacks committees she chairs. Pippa stood on a milk crate and declared, "Whales are friendly." The circle cheered. Her duck squeaked, an accidental microphone. For a moment, hope felt loud and possible. Then headlights turned the street into stage lights. Karen's SUV rolled in slow, windows dark, engine purring. The chalk words glowed, daring her to erase them with glare. She stepped out, smiled at the crowd, and filmed us. "Unauthorized gathering?" she asked sweetly. "Please disperse." A hush fell. Even the cicadas forgot their lines. I stepped forward. "We're neighbors. We're talking." Karen tilted her head. "On HOA property?" The threat in her softness felt like a snake under a picnic blanket. Walter's drone lowered toward Pippa. She flinched. I swatted it away, plastic blades nicking my wrist. Karen's smile vanished. "The salt," she said. The circle gasped. Sirens wailed far off. The sirens passed us for another street, leaving our hearts thudding like kicked buckets. Karen documented my bleeding wrist, announcing, "Evidence preserves order." My fists curled, then opened. Mr. Penn leaned close. "There's a way," he whispered. "Emergency hearing. If you prove hardship or safety measures, board can grant temporary use." He slid me a form. The form was a maze of boxes and words that liked to hide meaning. I filled every line, adding photos, sprinkler schedules, and a letter from Pippa in crayons. Karen circled, "A hawk over a field." "Incomplete," she sang, pointing to a missing initial. I initialed. "Improper attachment order." I rearranged. "Wrong in color." I borrowed a pen. Neighbors witnessed. Vesper notarized. She had a stamp from a former life. The packet thickened, heavy with evidence and little girl handwriting. I stapled it shut like a small shield. That night, a note slid again. "She fears daylight." Another doodle, this time a duck wearing a crown. I smiled, the first real smile in days of grinding teeth. Morning brought an email. "Emergency hearing approved, noon, Elm Quill Pavilion." Karen copied. "Walter too." Mr. Penn replied with a thumbs-up emoji, modern courage in small, square form. I dressed Pippa in her rainbow swimsuit under a sundress. "For luck," she said. I wore my cleanest shirt and the old watch my mother called, "your backbone." At the pavilion, the board sat behind folding tables. Fans rattled. Paper cups sweated. Karen called the meeting to order with a gavel she bought herself, monogrammed KL. I began, voice steady. Then Karen produced a new policy, dated yesterday. "Inflatables exceeding 6 inches are strictly prohibited." The gavel struck. The crowd groaned. My mouth went dry. I stared at the date. Yesterday. They rewrote the rule midstream. Karen smiled like a cat who memorized the fish market hours. Pippa gripped my sleeve, tiny knuckles white. Mr. Penn frowned. "Policy changes require 30 days notice." Karen tapped another paper. "Emergency addendum invoking safety clause." It smelled like fresh toner and old control. My stomach burned. I switched tactics. "This pool is medical," I said. "Heat triggers Pippa's fainting." Not a lie, she'd fainted once at a parade. Hydration and cooling are preventive measures. Karen blinked. A nurse neighbor, Rhea Keating, stood. "Heat dangers are real," she said. "Shade, short use, supervision, low risk." She handed a printed study. Karen eyed it like a foreign language. I produced a plan: non-slip mat, fence lock, timer, daily deflation, spill kit, water test strips. It read like NASA for a bathtub. People murmured. Hope budged the door. Karen countered with liability horror stories. "Insurance denied," she intoned, "after unauthorized water features caused sinkholes." Walter nodded vigorously, as if sinkholes lurked beneath inflatable whales. Then Vesper spoke softly. "I lost my son one summer. Rules aren't life. Kindness is." The pavilion fell quiet, wind ringing the flagpole like a bell for mercy. The board huddled. Karen's shoulders stiffened. When they turned back, Mr. Penn said, "Temporary variance granted, 7 days, conditions as submitted." Applause. Pippa squealed. Karen slammed the gavel. Her smile snapped back. "Any violation ends variance." Her eyes promised a hunt. I thanked the board, shaking, and carried Pippa home on a tide of clapping hands. At our mailbox, another envelope waited, Property reinspection scheduled 6 a.m. I glanced at the sunrise time. They'd come before the dew dried. The game wasn't over. Day 1, we followed the plan like a recipe. 10 minutes to fill, 20 to splash, towel patrol, timer dinging like a school bell. Karen circled, counting seconds aloud. Day 2, Walter measured water depth with a ruler through the fence. Pippa laughed, splashing his sleeve. He cursed, then pretended it was rain. I logged times in ink. Day 3, someone left us lemonade on the porch with a note, "Bright things belong." I saved the note in the jar with the graham cracker, sand. Day 4, Karen cited a toy boat as floating debris. I tagged it approved play object, initialed the log and waved. She stared at the initials like enemies. Day 5, Rhea checked Pippa's cheeks for sun. "You're doing great," she said, applying sunscreen like a spell. Pippa named the ducks after neighbors who helped. Mine was Captain Dad. Day 6, the drone returned. I put up twine with flags, "No fly zone," a joke. Walter hovered anyway. Vesper pointed a garden hose skyward. The drone retreated, dripping. Day 7, we planned a celebration. Popsicles for everyone, whale stickers, a photo for Pippa's memory box. Karen posted a notice instead, "Variance review today, 3 p.m., immediate effect." Neighbors gathered, whispering. Karen arrived in a white suit, clipboard crisp. "We've received complaints," she announced. Walter nodded too hard. Rhea frowned. Pippa squeezed my fingers, brave and small. Karen listed alleged violations: excessive laughter, visible colors, community disruption. The words were absurd, yet heavy. She prepared the gavel like thunder. I opened my logbook like a shield. Before I spoke, a car door slammed. A stranger stepped out holding papers stamped with the county seal. "Calder Finch?" he asked. My name sounded like a key turning. The stranger was an investigator from the county ombudsman's office. Someone filed a complaint about selective enforcement. He'd reviewed 8 households, 3 warnings and 1 favorite, ours. Karen stiffened. He read statements: bird baths allowed, porch hammocks tolerated, a trampoline grandfathered, though newer than our pool. He lifted photos. Karen's pen froze mid-air, a fly caught in amber. Rhea testified about safety. Vesper about grief. Mr. Penn admitted the emergency addendum lacked proper notice. Walter muttered but shrank under the county seal like ice under sunlight. The investigator asked me, "Why fight this hard?" I looked at Pippa. "Because children should learn rules keep people safe, not make them small." My voice finally sounded older. He nodded and issued a directive: freeze on fines, immediate review, variance extended 30 days. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it around nothing. The gavel never touched wood. Neighbors cheered. Pippa danced, crown crooked. I felt something loosen in my chest, the knot of years defined by bosses like Rusk and landlords like shadows with clipboards. Karen approached, eyes glassy. "You think you've won," she whispered. "This won't stand." I smiled kindly. "It'll stand like any good fence, because it keeps joy in, not people out." That evening, chalk whales swam across the cul-de-sac. Popsicles stained tongues blue. Someone brought a kiddie slide shaped like a dolphin. The sunset looked like spilled sherbet on clouds. I taped the county directive beside the denial on our fridge. Evidence of fight and breath. Pippa placed her duck crown on top like a trophy. Near midnight, a splash echoed. I ran outside. The pool lay slashed, water bleeding into grass. A box cutter glinted near the fence. Pippa cried, small and breaking. I held the torn vinyl, anger shaking my bones. Pippa's sobs were little thunder. Neighbors stepped from porches with flashlights, faces lit like campfire storytellers seeking villains. Karen emerged too, robe neat, eyes calm. "Vandalism is tragic," she said. "But perhaps now we can return to compliance." Her voice tasted like chalk dust on teeth. Mr. Penn found the culprit first. Walter's drone footage showed a figure in white sneaking along the fence. The county investigator watched, recorded, nodded. Karen's face became a locked door. At dawn, she resigned from the board, for family reasons. The email arrived hollow as an empty box. The county opened a formal case. Silence finally had consequences. Neighbors pooled money, pun intended, for a new pool. Bigger, sturdier, still inflatable joy. We painted tiny whales on fence slats, each a name of someone who stood with us. We added rules too, our own. Share popsicles. Splash kindly. Help clean up. Ask before filming. Laugh loudly, especially at sunset. Pippa announced them with her duck like a gavel. That summer, I learned something that lasted decades. Control loves paperwork, but community loves people. One shrinks children. The other lifts them onto shoulders to see fireworks better. Years later, when I say I'm 45, people hear time. I hear Pippa's giggle, the whistle, the gavel that never fell, and water warming under Ohio sun. We kept the kiddie pool, patched, scarred, storied, hanging in the garage like a flag from a small, necessary revolution. Pippa calls it our summer shield. I call it proof. And if you ask whether Karen ever apologized, I'll tell you this. She moved. We stayed. The whales stayed. The laughter stayed. That's how we won.